All right, welcome back. Summits Podcast, Episode 8. We are joined by Tatum Parker.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
The average age in the room just came down. Feeling pretty good about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I act like
You're
a 12-year-old, but thank you for bringing the chronological age down. We appreciate that.
Of course.
School's out.
School's out.
Summertime.
I'm home for the summer.
Yeah?
Oh,
what are you going to do this summer?
I'm kind of working two jobs. I have an internship actually at Riley. I'm working for like an undergraduate research program, working with some of my old doctors on some things.
Nice.
So I'm excited about that. And then I'm nannying 2 days a week also. So kind of getting the best of both worlds. I'm working for my internship 3 days a week, nannying 2 days a week.
Family friend, or how'd you?
Yes, my neighbor they live like 3 houses down from me. I've nannied for them. They have 2 boys.
Okay.
I've nannied for them the past like 5 summers. And it's pretty easy at this point. They're old enough. I'm kind of just giving them rides places, keeping them entertained, taking them out. So it's fun.
Keeping your dad away from them as much as possible.
Keeping my dad away. But one of them is the same age as my youngest brother. And so they hang out all the time.
Right.
They come over to swim. It's a nice gig to have. So.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Sophomore year in the books.
Yes.
How was, and I think I know the answer, but I got to ask it anyway. How was sophomore year at IU in a pandemic?
In a pandemic, not awful, but not great.
Right.
IU was very strict about a lot of things, obviously, keeping the gathering limit size way down, stuff like that. Obviously, I had a lot of first semester, all of my classes were remote. I did all of them online. Luckily, I lived in a house off campus with some of my sorority sisters. So that was really fun.
So when you did everything online, you were still in Bloomington?
Yeah, I stayed in Bloomington, which was really nice. And we had a house, so we were able to kind of do our own thing. That was very helpful. Second semester, I had at least one class every day that was in person. So that made it feel a little bit more normal, but still wasn't great.
During the first semester, did you see a lot of people leave and just go home?
Yeah, a lot of people actually did. I think a lot of freshmen, especially in the dorms, I felt so bad for the freshmen. They were not allowed to go to anyone else's dorm. They were really cooped up in their rooms, and I felt awful for them. And a lot of them didn't have in-person classes, so I think a lot of them just kind of packed up and left.
So they were restricted to their dorm and like the cafeteria kind of thing? Wow. That would... Yeah. So it's a small room to be stuck in for.
And a lot of them, of course, would like go to other people's dorms, but it was a whole like 3 strikes you're out type of situation. So if they got caught more than once in other people's dorm rooms or doing stuff, they would get in trouble. So at that point, it wasn't really worth it.
That puts kind of curtails the late night study sessions.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a lot of time at the library when I was in Bloomington.
We made the most of it. We did what we could and had fun regardless. Right. We kept calling it tiny fun because, we had to keep things small for the most part. But
how did that work in the house then? You guys had your room, or did the house kind of operate as its own kind of like ecosystem where you guys were all kind of quarantined together at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice because it was me and 4 other girls. And so we, as in my roommates, I actually never got COVID, but my roommates got it like the first week we got there, like just off the bat. We think one of my roommates might have gotten it in Indy and had it when she got to school, because all of us had gotten tested when we got there, and all of the people we had seen up to that point had all been tested, and everyone had tested negative at that point. So we think she might have gotten it in Indy, but we had to quarantine for 2 weeks, like literally the first 2 weeks we were at school. But it was nice because after that we didn't have to anymore. Yeah, and then we just hung out for 2 weeks, got to know each other, and then after that we were good. So that was, but
nothing like quarantine to really get to know somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
In every aspect.
True.
So
July,
as you're well aware, is Sarcoma and Bone Cancer Awareness Month.
Yes, it is.
That's when this is going to go out and hit the airwaves and the YouTube, as we like to call it.
YouTubes.
So, Tatum Parker, tell us, what is your cancer story?
Yes. Well, my cancer story dates back to July 2006, just a couple weeks before my 6th birthday. I woke up. I had been complaining of knee pain for a while, just on and off, but we didn't really think much of it. And there was one morning when I woke up and I couldn't walk, and I was freaking out, of course, as a 6-year-old little girl. I was very spooked as to what was going on. And we immediately went to the emergency room, which was not very far from our house, luckily. I remember crying in the emergency. I don't remember much, but I remember crying in the emergency room, being asked what my pain level was, and pointing to like an 8 because I was like, I don't want to point to 10, but it really hurts. I can't walk. And I think they like put me under at that point. They did all the scans, all the things that they could do.
Was it pain from putting pressure on it, or you couldn't bend at the knee, or
it was?
Both?
I think it was mostly pressure from what I remember. Just like not being able to stand on it. I remember waking up. I would wake up in the middle of the night randomly in the months before or the weeks before. I would wake up randomly just with pain. Like it would just like wake me in my sleep. And I would like limp into my parents' room and be like, my leg hurts. And then they'd let me sleep with them. They'd be like, she's fine. And I'll wake up in the morning and it would be gone for the most part. But this time I woke up, I think in the morning, early morning, with like a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. And I like tried to stand up and wasn't going very well for me. But yeah, so the doctor came in and basically was like, it's cancer, we think. There's a huge mass. And it was in my femur. And so obviously the tumor in my femur was pulling on muscles that were affecting my knee. So within a couple days, I was at Riley, and they did a biopsy to figure out what kind of cancer it was, and it was Ewing's sarcoma, which is a pretty rare form of cancer, and it's most common in teenage boys. So that was quite interesting because I was a 6-year-old girl at the time. But yeah, immediately right into chemo. I think I had about 13 rounds of chemo my first time, and over the course of a year, I would go in for 2 days, which was one night, and they would give me one type of chemo that I remember would make me puke every time I got it. And then I would have like 2 weeks off, and then I'd go back in for 4 days or 4 nights. And that chemo didn't make me feel too horrible. But that was the cycle that I went on for about a year.
Did they do surgery before chemo started, or they want to do chemo and then?
I think it was after a certain amount of rounds of chemo. They did surgery, and they removed 6 inches of my femur, replaced it with a metal rod or a metal plate. And this is one of the reasons we had thought that it might have come back a second time, because it did later. Spoiler alert, it comes back. But I got 6 inches of my femur removed, and for some reason, we still don't know why, but right after, my plate broke in half. And it was like after I had recovered enough where I was walking again, and I just remember I scootered. There was a Marsh grocery store near my house, and I scootered to the grocery store on a Razor scooter with my dad, and I remember coming home and being, again, unable to walk, and I was like, it hurts to put pressure on it. I can't walk. And so we went back to the hospital the next day, and they did an x-ray, and my plate was literally snapped right down the middle, just right in half.
That's crazy, because those things are made of titanium, I think.
Yeah.
You just can't snap one.
They don't break. And that's what my doctor was like, we've never seen this before.
She's really fast on her scooter.
I'm really fast on my scooter.
Or she was leg pressing like 1,200 pounds or something. Yeah.
I was trying to bulk up after laying in bed for so long. I needed to get back up. But yeah, so I had to have that surgery redone. So they took that plate out, obviously, placed it with another one. And they didn't do my last chemo treatment because they were like, with the surgery and everything, they were like, we're just going to be done. Yeah. Be done with chemo. Okay. So they didn't do my last chemo treatment. And then about a year and a half later, they would scan. I'd go back every 3 months, and they would scan my leg and check on everything. And they would also scan my lungs, because Ewing sarcoma is known for coming back numerous times. But when it's in the leg, for some reason, it tends to come back in the lungs. And so they would scan my lungs every time I went. And so we were very lucky that they did that, because it did come back, and it came back in my lungs. And they were doing a lung scan, and my doctor, I remember he called me in. I did a CT scan of my lungs, and he said, come back here for a second. And I go back into like the scanning room where you can see all the scans up on the wall, and he zoomed in super, super, super close. He was like, in. He goes, do you see that little tiny dot right there? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, that could be, it could be scar tissue I had a central line, so there was some scar tissue going on up here. He said, it could be scar tissue, but we don't know. And it's super small. All I wanted you to see was how small this little dot is. It's so small, you can barely see it. But I think we're going to need to do a biopsy and see what this is. And so then, of course, we met with the doctor after the scans, and he was like, I showed her on the scan the little dot. super small. We're going to do a biopsy. Did a biopsy. They called on Thanksgiving Day, 2008. So this was a little over 2 years later after my first diagnosis. And they said, it's back. It's in her right lung. So we're going to go ahead, start back up with treatment. This time they said they were going to do outpatient. They switched a lot of things around for me to make me way more comfortable. They had me do outpatient. And so I would go for 5 days. I'd go Monday, I think it was Monday through Friday, would do outpatient. I'd be there from like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. about. And they would mix my chemo. So the one that made me sick and the one that made me not sick, they mixed them together so that I wouldn't get sick anymore. Because they were like, we know that this, she had bad effects with the first time around and we want to fix that and whatever. So I'd go for a week, 2 weeks off, go for a week, 2 weeks off. Did that for another year. Also had radiation done on my lungs, which ended up not being great for me. But they did regular radiation, which is where they radiate the entire lung. And I had about 10 rounds of that, I think. And then I also had 13 rounds of proton beam radiation, which is where they really narrow in just on where the tumor spot is. And again, fortunately, there was a proton beam radiation center in Bloomington. Right. So I would go, my mom and I would drive down to Bloomington every day, and I'd get my proton beam radiation done there. Had my lungs collapse at one point, which was really scary. I was rushed to the ER one night, had to stay in the ICU for a couple days. My lungs just like completely shriveled up. So I still have a lot of breathing problems because of that. But yeah, I finished all my treatments, I think around October, maybe. I could be saying this so wrong.
Of 08?
Of 09.
09, okay.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in November of 08. Right, yeah. And then finished about a year later. And I've been cancer-free ever since. So I think all that
was the radiation,
the
proton beam therapy, was that part of the original plan, or was that to start some point after the chemo had already started?
That is a good question. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I had already been doing chemo for a little while before we started radiation. And then I think I might have done a couple rounds of chemo after the radiation therapy was done.
Yeah. From my experience as well, I remember them, because my tumor was in my chest, and they didn't want to have to do radiation if they could avoid it.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just curious, because the potential side effects and long-term effects of that.
It's definitely not good. Yeah. It's definitely not great long-term. I have a lot of organ issues. I have to go back still every year and get echocardiograms and get my lungs checked out and get everything. Make sure everything's still working.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because it definitely can have a lot of bad side effects. But I think Ewing sarcoma is known to come back a lot of times, and they wanted to make sure they nipped it in the butt when they had it, since it was so small, and it can be very aggressive, and it can spread pretty quickly all around the body. And so I think they needed to make sure
overly
they got
cautious.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's November of 09. How often were you going back for checkups?
It was kind of a gradual. They gradually took me out, so it would be every 3 months for a year, every 5 months for a year, every 6 months, or no, it was 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And then now it's every year. Okay. So every year it went up another month where I would have to go back less and less.
Right. Now, when you hit that 5-year mark, I mean, everyone's a little bit different. Did they say you're cured? Mm-hmm. And did they give you that option, say, hey, we still want to see you every year, or you can, it's up to you, you don't have to at that point?
They didn't really give me the option. Okay, with everything. They still see me every year, and like I said, they have to check my heart, and they have to check my lungs, and do all sorts of. I have fertility issues, so they have to check my hormones every time I go back, and so they have to keep that up. But they did say at 5 years, they were like, now you're in remission technically, I think, until 5 years, and then cancer-free. So
good.
You're all good now.
Yeah, I think I probably would. I mean, based on what you just said, I would probably agree with the annual.
Yeah.
Checking with that.
Yeah. Definitely some things I want to keep an eye on.
Right.
That's for sure.
We've got a few pics from the early years I'm going to throw up that you were kind enough to share with us. The first one was that's diagnosis.
That was the day. That was July 19th.
I mean, you look super excited.
Yeah. So, well, that picture, I remember my mom took that picture because it's my uncle's birthday. It was also the day I was diagnosed, which is my mom's brother. And she would always be like, oh, Uncle Greg, he's such a weenie. He would never get an IV in his arm. You look so strong compared to him. He's going to be like, he's whatever. He's going to think you're so brave, and it's his birthday. So let's take this picture. So
well, I do concur.
My poor Uncle Greg.
Your Uncle Greg is a weenie. Just for let the record state. Her Uncle Greg is a fraternity brother of mine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the reason why I say that.
But yeah, so it was on Greg's birthday that this picture was taken.
Way to go, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Uncle Greg. We like to remind him.
Right, yeah. Go ahead and flip to photo 2 there. Yeah. So what's...
Yeah, so that was outpatient. So this was the second time. This is when it was in my lung. I just remember that because I had to sit in a chair when it was an outpatient an outpatient photo. So yeah, I was sitting getting chemo. I would play with a bunch of toys. We always had a bag of stuff.
Were you in a larger room with other patients?
So yes, and well, the old hospital before they built the Simon Family Tower, which is incredible, by the way. Yeah. I've gone back and visited numerous times, and I'm very jealous that it looks like that, because when I was in treatment, this in particular was outpatient, and so I sat in one of those chairs essentially, and there was curtains around me, and then behind the curtain was another patient getting chemo, and it was just a big room that was like the whole perimeter of the room was just chairs and curtains. Yeah. And then the nursing station was in the middle, so we could see all the nurses, and they would come in and out, and there was a little TV behind every curtain, but it was literally, we were just divided by curtains.
Right, yeah. Sheet in between everybody.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And then for inpatient, there were some rooms where it was 2 patients in a room. So it was a very small room. I would say not much bigger than the room we're in now. And it was 2 beds, curtain in between. And it didn't matter what they were doing. They were giving you chemo. I mean, it was the oncology floor. So of course we were all getting chemo, but we definitely knew what was going on right next door when the doctor would come in and talk to each patient. There was not a lot of privacy.
My glamorous community room, as I call it, was fairly early in the treatment, and one of the drugs, I don't know if it was the same one, but you just could tell, every time they administered it, it was like, whoa, that didn't go down real well. And I don't know, let's say this 4th treatment out of 15 or whatever it was, nurse had done it, and I was like, yeah, you may want to get a bucket. And no sooner did she go to get that, and I just all over myself. I just kind of look up, and there's a dozen people all around, no curtains.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, sweet.
Yeah, that was also the best when you were nauseous and not feeling very well, and you could hear the person directly next to you.
You're fighting it back.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, great. I hear them doing it. I don't know if I should go for it.
Right.
Smells were also a huge. I could not smell certain things without vomiting or wanting to vomit, and it was, and then the person next to you is like, I really want McDonald's for lunch today, and their parents would go get them McDonald's, and then you're sitting there really holding it back because that smell.
You don't want to ruin their McDonald's, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
when I walk into a hospital now, regardless of which one, they all kind of have that sanitized smell to them, and that it doesn't make me get nauseous, but it stirs something.
Yeah. The hand sanitizer they put on before they come in the rooms, that still gets me.
Haunt you.
Yeah.
That and tequila. But that's a different story.
Different story.
So flip to the next pic, if you would, Chris. Yeah. So this is a picture that never gets old. Seeing folks ring the bell. How'd you feel? I mean, state the obvious, but
obviously great. But we also joke that this is, not a great joke to make, but we do make the joke that I never rang the bell the first time. I don't remember why. I don't remember if we just got caught up in something, or if I got an award. They give you a certificate that says, last chemo treatment, whatever. But I never officially rung the bell. So we would joke with my nurses and be like, it's your fault that it came back a second time because you didn't let me ring the bell.
You were great. Sorry.
But yeah, so I did get to ring the bell the second time, which was great. Took pictures with all my nurses, had my little medal on, got my award, hung it in my room. Was very excited about that.
I like the hairstyle too, just saying.
Yeah, right? Life was a lot easier without hair.
Go back.
I think about it.
Yeah.
Wearing wigs, that was the other thing. I was obsessed with Hannah Montana. I was, 6-8-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Loved Hannah Montana, but loved that she could change her identity with a wig.
Right.
Thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so I had wigs of various hair colors that I would change out and be different people. Now I think today I could do wigs.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'd be a sight.
That would look creepy as hell.
Yeah. We'll have to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay.
One day you'll just walk in here and there'll be just like 4 wigs like set up on the table, and we'll just have you try them on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Change your identity with each wig.
This is hit a different level. All right. So great day, ringing the bell, second time through. Take us through the next, couple months or the next year or so after that, when things started to happen in terms of, all right, I want to do something about this. What triggered everything, and what was that process?
Yeah. Well, I actually started my organization. I'm assuming that's what we're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I started that before I was diagnosed the second time.
Okay.
So it was actually during the first time that all the ideas kind of started to stir. But when I was first diagnosed, I received a lot of gifts. I think when, especially kids, are first diagnosed, we get cookies sent to our house, and we got various gifts in little gift baskets, and family friends would drop stuff off, or if I would have a surgery, they would come and bring stuff, which we were always so grateful for, and I was so appreciative and loved everything I received, and was just so grateful for that outpouring of support that we got after my first diagnosis. But I remember one night receiving this huge box in the mail, and I opened it, and there was this big purple backpack with stuff falling out the top, falling out the sides. And I opened it, and I was taken aback by everything inside. There was craft kits that I played with and did for so long. I had a pink Game Boy. That was the big gift in the backpack that I brought every single time I went, played all the different Game Boy games, and it was pink, so that was really cool. Okay. And just so much stuff. There were even a couple gifts from my little brothers who were very young at the time. And we were so grateful, and found out that it came from like a friend of a friend. My dad's, I think, if I'm getting this connection correct, it was my dad's friend from high school, next door neighbor in Colorado, started this thing called the Gabby Krause Foundation, where they would give out backpacks to kids diagnosed with cancer in Colorado. And it was in memory of Gabby Krause, who passed away at the age of 5, I'm pretty sure, from cancer. And her mom started this organization in her name. And Gabby would bring a backpack every time she would go into treatment with all of her favorite things in it for her to do while she was there. And so her mom started giving out these backpacks, and had heard about me and my story and my family, and graciously sent me a backpack in the mail. And I loved it. Took it every single time I went into treatment, used every single thing that was in the bag. And when we were in the hospital, we noticed a need. And around Christmas time, they come around and they bring you gifts around Christmas. And I remember the 4th of July, they brought some 4th of July gifts around. And, it's always like around big holidays that they would bring out gifts to the oncology patients. And there were a lot of kids who were not there during those times. So, I mean, those kids didn't get gifts, and they didn't get whatever was handed out during that time. And we would notice a lot of kids that were there completely by themselves, alone. Every family situation is different. They had siblings at home that needed to be taken care of. They had parents that had to work 2 jobs in order to pay their medical bills. They had, all sorts of, they lived 4 hours away, 5 hours away, and their parents couldn't commute every time that they had to get treatment done. And there were kids that were in there for weeks at a time, completely alone at the age of 5, at the age of 6. And I would often share my things with them. This pink Game Boy that I was very proud of. I remember vividly this little boy, I think he was 8 at the time, and I was 6, and he was in the room next door. And I remember one of my nurses came in, and she was running behind, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to entertain this little boy. I feel so bad. He's been here so long, and he's all by himself, and he's so bored with," at the time, I mean, they have definitely upgraded the hospital rooms now, but at the time it was literally you and a TV that got a couple channels that were on cable or whatnot. And she was like, "He's been here for so long. He has literally nothing in his room." And I was like, here, take my Game Boy. I have some boy games. I was like, here's some Mario games and Froggy or whatever it was called. And I was like, he'll play with this for a little bit. And he wrote me this long thank you note saying, and I never met him, but he was in the room next door. And he wrote a thank you note just saying that, like, thank you for letting me use your Game Boy. I really appreciated it, whatever. And it was kind of around then that we thought of the idea of giving out backpacks of our own to patients, because my family and I were obviously very gracious for the hospital, for everything, for obviously saving my life and for everything they did. And we saw this need of so many kids that were needing something to do, something that they could do while they were in a hospital bed for long periods of time. And so we started doing Tatum's Bags of Fun, is what it was called at the time. And we started in August of 2008 is when we gave out our first bag, August 1st. And we would, the Gabby Krause Foundation sent us backpacks at first because they were sponsored by a backpack company at the time, and they would send us backpacks, and we would go and fill them up, and we just started handing them out. And we had family friends that were donating to us, and we had, some good community support. It took a minute to get us on our feet, but we started doing it, and we started just doing it at Riley. And then once we were able to, we expanded to Peyton Manning, and now every child that's diagnosed with cancer in Indiana has to filter through one of those main hospitals in Indianapolis in order to specifically receive their treatment or whatever. They have to filter through, I guess, to check to make sure they're getting the right treatment at other various hospitals across the state. And so we know that we're hitting all the kids that are being diagnosed as they filter through. And so we would get a list from the nurses at the hospitals with the age and gender of every child that was diagnosed within that month. And we would go get all the stuff, fill up the backpacks, and deliver them. And we've been doing that, since August 2008. So,
wow.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Do you know how many backpacks to date you guys have delivered?
I think about a little over 4,000 now.
Wow.
So a lot. We normally, we average 350 every year, which is really sad. Meaning that about 350 kids in just the state of Indiana alone are diagnosed every year is heartbreaking, but that's why we do it.
Yeah.
And we recently, continuing that on, in 2017, we rebranded as the Tatum Parker Project, which is what we are now. And we have, there's the logo.
I like the logo. It looks good.
Thank you. We, my dad was like, you're older now. So it's 2017. So I just turned 17, and my dad was like, we need to upgrade. We not only need to have something that's a little more mature, because we're going to keep doing this as I went into college, which we have. But we wanted to add some more little things onto it. And so now we obviously raise money for pediatric cancer research in particular, because pediatric cancer research only receives, I think it's 4% of all federal money that's given to cancer research. Only 4% goes to pediatrics. And so obviously we believe that that's really low of a number for children, especially when they're the future. And so we raise money and raise awareness for pediatric cancer research as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good call, because you're right. I think it's 4%. It's in that neighborhood. It's
shockingly low.
Crazy low.
Shockingly low.
Yeah. And what I don't know, there are occasional research projects that are kind of, not specific to adult or pediatric, that kind of crosses both spectrums. And I'd be curious to know what do they designate it? Do they designate that as non-pediatric or not?
Yeah.
I would venture to guess. So it may skew the numbers a little bit, but regardless, either way, it's sub 10%, which is too low.
Too low.
So what year was the very first bag delivered? Do you recall?
2008.
2008, that's right.
So it was August 1st, 2008 is when we delivered our first bag, and we delivered it to a girl who I had actually been in treatment with.
Okay.
And she had been re-diagnosed as well, and so we gave her the first bag. I remember it.
I think we have a picture.
There it is. That's the first bag. It's Cheyenne. Yeah. So and then behind is the curtain. So there's, there's her side, and then
curtain.
right behind the curtain was another patient. But that was the first bag we delivered.
Now, have you stayed in touch with her by chance?
I have not stayed in touch. I don't know exactly. My parents have. I know for a fact my mom has. Caringbridge Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. That is still, my mom still keeps up with people.
Okay.
Stuff, so
cool.
Yeah. So I know my mom's.
What was it like, handing out that first bag?
It was a great feeling. And we kind of sometimes call it a blessing in disguise that I was diagnosed the second time, because it was just a couple months after this that I was re-diagnosed, and I was obviously able to go into the hospital. I was there all the time, and I was able to deliver a lot of bags in person, which I'm not really able to do as much anymore.
Right.
But I was able to meet a lot of the patients that I was giving the bags to and meet them face to face, and watching them open bags and watching their face light up and watching them get excited about something was such a good feeling. And I was able to see the impact that I was making. And I would go in for my treatments and I would see kids carrying their backpacks, or I'd see them on the back of wheelchairs and know that like they've received a bag and they're using it and they bring it to treatment every time. And we got a lot of, generous thank you notes, and a lot of kids would come up to me in the hospital and thank me personally. And their parents would say, it's the first time I've seen them smile in a very long time. And it's the first time that they've gotten excited about something in a very long time. And I think not only giving them the bags, and the kids would obviously be very excited about what was inside the bags, and they would be, every backpack comes with an electronic of some sort. It used to be DS's.
Okay.
And then it was iPod touches and that stuff. And now it's Kindles, because everything else has gone through the roof price-wise. But Kindles can also be used as a form of iPad, and so kids get really excited about those. So obviously they were very excited about the contents of the bags, but I think the families and the parents were also very excited to see me, somebody who has gone through what their child's going through and has come out of it. And, at that time was in treatment with them, and they could see that I was doing well and powering through. And I think that was inspiring for a lot of the families as well. So it was kind of a good message to give to patients and their families.
Yeah, that's good. So you're a North Central Panther, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When you went into high school, or really even the latter part of elementary school, your post second time through this, do you feel like kids treated you any differently at all if they knew your story?
No. And in elementary school, so the first time I had cancer, I was supposed to be in kindergarten. I actually never went. I was put in a class. They kept me in the class, but I obviously never went to school. I went on Valentine's Day was the one day I went because I wanted candy. My mom
it's an important day.
Oh yeah, very important day. But they, were so good about, explaining to the students what was going on with me. And I went to first grade, went to all of first grade. And then second grade, we did, quarters kind of. I just remember it being right after the first quarter of second grade is when I was diagnosed the second time. But I remember in first grade, my first one, I was bald, completely bald. And I cried on the first day because I didn't want to go without a wig. And my parents were like, nope, you're going without a wig just for the first day at least. I remember I wore a skirt specifically so people would know I was a girl, because at that age, a lot of people were very confused as to why I didn't have hair. And that was always a question of like, are you a girl or a boy? Like that kind of situation, that would always upset me. But my elementary school let me and my best friend, Michael, who has been my best friend forever, they let him give me a tour of the school because I'd never been to my elementary school before, and he went to kindergarten there, so he knew the school. They let him give me a tour of the school before I went, and he was in I think they specifically put him in my first grade class on purpose. And I had a pen pal in kindergarten because I never went to school, and so they had set up a pen pal situation, and they put her also in my first grade class, so I knew someone going into it. And my teacher explained everything to all the students, and from then on, they treated me no different than anyone else. They I played with everyone at recess, made friends with everyone, going through middle school, going through high school, nobody ever treated me different. Everyone just treated me like every other student that was there. Right. If anything, they treated me better. They always had questions. They always wanted to know how I was doing, and if I ever had appointments or something. If I wasn't in school, they'd be like, where were you? Were you at a doctor's appointment? How'd it go? How is everything going? Everyone was always so gracious and so nice to me, and I never really felt like an outsider, which was great.
Good.
Yeah.
Did Did Riley ever have you talk to other kids who recently diagnosed, whether it would be with a different form of cancer or something that, matched up with your diagnosis? Would you ever speak to them shortly after their diagnosis to kind of answer questions or be a sounding board for things?
Riley didn't necessarily do that, but I know that I had talked to a couple patients through my mom or my dad who had maybe known somebody who had been recently diagnosed, or they would have family members reach out saying, so-and-so has been diagnosed. I talked to people who lived in other states who were maybe nervous about things, and they would connect me with them. I would text back and forth with other patients, basically through my parents. I met a lot of patients, in the hospital going through treatment at the same time, and I would talk to them, and we would compare stories, compare situations, and kind of help each other out through that. But yeah.
You keep in contact with any of them still today?
Not really. Again, like, I'm friends with a lot of them on Facebook, and so I keep up with them that way and see how they're doing and see how they've made it so far. Right. So yeah.
See, another benefit of the Facebook.
Yeah.
Get such a bad rap.
Yeah.
So we're now gotten through North Central. Saw your parents would post a lot, so I kind of was able to keep up a little bit with what was going on there. Your parents are both IU grads,
yes,
right? They're way older than they've already gone out of IU before I got there. But did you feel like you were always going to IU, or what helped prompt that decision?
Yes and no. I looked outside. Obviously, I looked at schools kind of all over the place, but IU always had everything I wanted. I knew I wanted to go to a big school because growing up, obviously, went through public schools, very large public schools, and I'm a big fan of large public schools, and I always had such a great time, and I was like, I know I want to go to a big school, and Big Ten schools are always, good time, fun times, and I knew I wanted something along those lines. I knew I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I was very undecided about what I wanted to do, what I wanted my major to be, and so I needed somewhere where I could try out different things and figure things out. I didn't want to go too far. I applied to some schools in California, got into Pepperdine, was kind of excited about that, but also was like, it's really far, and I would only be able to come home probably once a year, and what's that going to look like? And I had a lot of friends going to IU, and I was just like, you know what? It has everything I want, everything I need. I'm just going to go to IU, and easily the best decision I could have made. I've been nothing but happy the whole time I've been there, and I am loving it. So,
what are we studying?
Elementary education.
Makes sense.
Yes. I have changed my major. I think I was nursing major first semester, freshman year. Switched out of that, did recreational therapy for a semester. Because I was thinking about doing occupational therapy or recreational therapy, both, working with kids, obviously, in the therapy area. And then I switched to exercise science for my first semester of sophomore year. And I did that because I had more options. I could have done occupational therapy, physical therapy, PA school, various things with exercise, or kinesiology, exercise science.
Yeah.
Hated it. Cried all the time. Hated my classes. And I think a large part of that was COVID and having all of my classes be online. And
we'll just blame it on COVID.
Yeah. We'll blame it on COVID. Yeah. We'll blame it on COVID, not the science factor. But I just realized I didn't like science and math as much as I thought I did. I thought I was a big science math brain girl. Was not. And I just kept looking at the classes I was going to need to take moving forward. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I was like, if I hate it now, I'm going to hate it way more next semester. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to my friends, and I was like, I want to work with kids. I want to work with kids. It's all I've ever said. Everything in the back of my mind has been like, I'll be a nurse, but for pediatric oncology. I'll be an occupational therapist, but only for pediatrics. Like, all I wanted to do was work with kids. And I was like, I think I really want to be a teacher. It's always been something in the back of my mind. I've always kind of said, I want to be a teacher. I told my mom, I remember telling her going into college as a freshman, I was like, I wish I could just do elementary education. And she was like, well, yeah, like you could do that. You won't make a lot of money, but you could definitely do that. And I was like, I wish I could just do it. I wish I could just do elementary education, but nursing's fine. Or recreational therapy is fine. You know, like it was always like, well, whatever, I'll do this. But I was like, no, I need to do it. I need to switch. I'm so unhappy. Called my parents and I was like, look, so sorry. I'm switching to elementary education. And I have been so happy this semester, loving all of my classes, so excited about it. I talk about it all the time with my friends. I'm like, I'm just so excited to be a teacher. So excited. And I want to like be able to make an impact. I always also wanted to help people was my other big thing. I want to work with kids and I want to help people. And as long as I'm doing both of those things, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. Yep. And so it doesn't matter what it is, as long as I'm doing those two things. And I feel like this is a good chance to do both those things and hopefully make a good impact on a lot of kids moving forward.
Yeah, if you're passionate about it, that should typically trump everything else.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So I'm really excited.
I think I know the answer to this because we've certainly been through it, but how would you describe trying to run a philanthropic organization through a pandemic?
Yeah. Good question. First, huge, giving all of the credit to my parents, all of it, just like throw it on them. They are the reason that we're still doing what we're doing. They have obviously done the majority of the work, especially since I've been at school. They have taken over almost entirely. And so I'm extremely grateful for both of them for everything that they do and for all of the help and all of the work they put into it. It's like they're both working 2 jobs and this is their second one. So it's pretty incredible to watch them, you know, take over and definitely doing it for me. So that's awesome. But it was hard. Obviously, we had to cancel we have a big event every year, the White and Gold Party, and that was canceled because of COVID, of course. And so that is where we get all of our money. All of our funding for the year basically comes from that one event. Yeah. So that was really, really hard. And we're slowly running out of funds here. So we're very fortunate that we have one coming up because we're kind of at the end of what we have had saved.
Yeah.
What is the date this year? Go ahead and plug that.
August 13th.
Okay. At the Vogue.
Dad, don't get mad at me if I'm getting that wrong, but I think it's August 13th at the Vogue. At the Vogue. In Broderpool. We just had this discussion before I left. He was like, do not get this wrong. Yes, August 13th at the Vogue. 16 Candles is performing. It'll be so fun.
Cool.
21 and up, open bar. Obviously, I will almost be 21 at that point, but I do go every year regardless. But yeah, so that is our big fundraiser.
Nice.
So we're very happy that we get to have it this year. Confirmed we're getting to have it. Tickets go on sale soon. But yeah, so we couldn't have our event. We were lucky enough to have sponsors still willing to donate and still sponsor us for the year. And we had a lot of great support from family and friends and people willing to still help us get through. But it was definitely difficult. I have not been able to go back to the hospital. We still can't go back to the hospital. We have to drop everything off. My mom and I just went the other day and we had a trunk full of backpacks. And
yeah, I think we've got a pic of.
So that was the last, that was over winter break, my freshman year, over winter break. And that was right inside the front lobby at Riley. Sorry. That was in the front lobby at Riley. And we dropped off backpacks, brought them upstairs. And that is the last time I have gone inside. Well, actually, that is a lie. I went for an appointment, but didn't drop off bags.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I've had a couple appointments since then that I've gone back for, but that was the last time we dropped off bags. And now we go and a doctor or a nurse comes out and she piles them into this big cart and she takes them in for us.
Takes them behind the doors. And
takes them behind the doors and we don't see them again.
It's a little anticlimactic. I mean, you still have to do, not have to do it, but you still want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it just doesn't have kind of the same feeling about it. But then you see the picture, if they send you some pics.
Yes, and I just, we just a couple days ago got a thank you note in the mail and it was the cutest thing ever. And it was from a mom and she was like, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of me and my son for your gift. And we still get so many thank you notes, so many Facebook messages and stuff. And that definitely keeps us going.
Never get old.
Never get old. That is what keeps us going. That's for sure.
Yeah, I hear that. So how, you said you had a recent checkup?
Yeah.
All good?
All good. I have this weird lump in my throat that has been there for a very long time, but we've done numerous tests on it and they're like, it's nothing. We don't know what's going on. So my lymph node is just my lymph node is swollen and it won't go away. And they were like, it's not. They did all these blood tests. They've done all these scans on it. Like, it's nothing. So other than that, I'm doing good. Yeah. I forgot to mention, I had my hip replaced my freshman year of high school. And that was a side effect or a proponent of the femur replacement.
Okay.
Cut
off a
lot
of
scootering. Not too much scootering, thank goodness. The Razor scooter has been retired since the incident. But it cut off a lot of blood flow to my hip, and so my hip joint essentially deteriorated completely. And I was having a lot of hip pain. I was like, this is weird. And I went and they scanned it, and they were like, you're still walking. It's amazing, because you shouldn't be, because your hip is practically gone. And they did a hip replacement my freshman year, so I still go back to get that checked out every year as well. So now it's kind of like a double appointment where they check everything. Basically check all my hardware, make sure my robotic leg is still working.
Like an iPhone, like do you get an update every now and then?
You would think. I do have to get my hip replaced now every like 15 years or so, but get a lot of wear and tear on there now that I'm such a young person with a hip replacement. They're like, a lot of times, you're plus 60 and it's 20 years later and you probably need another one. They're like, but you're gonna need one here pretty soon probably, because I'm still running around. But yeah, other than that, all good. Haven't had really any issues since I finished chemo, other than the hip. So hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, exactly. So let's, if you were to talk to a child today that's recently diagnosed, what would you tell them? I mean, what are some words of wisdom, having been through what you've been through? What would you share with those folks today?
Yeah, I think that seeing the bright side of things is kind of a way that I've lived my life since everything happened. I do my best on a daily basis to see the good in everything, and to see the good in everything that life throws at you. And I think especially recently with the pandemic and everything, my whole outlook was just to try to stay positive through everything and look on the bright side. And I think that mindset is essential for getting through anything. And so, especially for young kids, I think young kids have this crazy way of just being able to like see the good so much easier than adults can, I think. And it's awesome. And I think that just being able to maintain that mindset is so important, and being happy and staying positive. And my mom used to tell me, I remember so vividly, before we would go into scans, she would tell me to like close my eyes and picture my tumor getting smaller. So, and then I'd go in my scans and they'd be like, oh, it looks like it's going down. And so it was all this like positive mindset. Yeah. And I just think that smiling your way through it and staying positive is a great cure and can help you so much more getting through it. And it's way easier to get through it.
Yep.
Smiling.
Attitude.
Yep.
Keeps coming back.
It's the attitude.
It's underlying theme every single
totally
episode,
the attitude and the mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on the quote unquote business side of things, what is your vision for the Tatum Parker Project in the years ahead?
I think just keep doing what we're doing and keeping it up. I think we've always said we wanted to expand it. I don't know what that would look like. We've given bags to kids in other states. They've started a Bags of Fun actually in, where did they just start one? They've started them in other states from bags that we've given, which is awesome. So they're helping us expand this across the country, which is, I think, essentially what our main goal was. But I think continuing to do what we're doing, giving it to kids in Indiana, giving it to all the kids that are diagnosed, and just continuing to raise money and research, or money and awareness for pediatric cancer research is something that's extremely important to me and something that we would just like to continue doing. And we want to keep doing it until hopefully we don't need to do it anymore. That's also something we've always said. Until hopefully there's a day where we don't need to do it anymore and it can be a thing of the past. We're going to keep trucking.
Moving along.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, good on you. Good on your parents. We got a family photo here as well. I don't want to give your dad too much credit, but they are wearing the all IU gear there.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I appreciate what you guys are doing on a lot of levels, but super excited and happy that you guys have continued to keep doing this and still want to until, like you said, hopefully we don't have to do it anymore. But until then, we press on.
We press on. Yep. Absolutely. Very grateful for my family. They've done everything and more for me. they're definitely the reason I am where I am today. So I'm very grateful for my parents, my grandparents too.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done without my grandparents as well. My brothers are awesome, very supportive. Truett, the one in the jersey, is now way taller than me. So if he sees this, he would not like that picture because he has grown a lot more in the past year. So
well, we'll just remember him as the shorter one here in this
Truett,
candy
you hear
stripes
that? And Tynan, the one next to me, he's going to be joining me at IU next year. So that's really exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Perfect.
Super excited for him.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming
Absolutely.
in. And
thank you so much for having me.
Sharing your story.
It's been fun.
Yes. Always love an opportunity to share my story.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for what you're doing. This podcast is awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're trying.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, Tatum Parker, thanks. Check out the White and Gold Party August 13th at the Vogue. Be there. I've been to a couple of those. It's a good time.
Good time.
Yeah. It's not it's not quite your 21st birthday, but it was close.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.